Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I kind of fancied doing a Beatles album review. I haven't done like one of their albums in like a little while now, so I thought that I would review their album Help, because it is for me one of the more like underrated Beatles albums. Like it's one which is one which not a lot of people tend to talk about, but it is one of my personal favourites of theirs. So I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this was the Beatles' 5th UK studio album, released on the 5th of August in 1965. The Beatles had spent most of the year making their movie off the same name, and basically recorded the album. I think there's only about 10 recording sessions for this, in between their filming and touring commitments. Now, unusually for a Beatles album, there was quite a handful of studio outtakes, which initially didn't see the light of day. There was an original song called If You Got Troubles, which was originally intended for Ringo to sing, that was deemed not good enough for release, and there was a McCartney song called That Means a Lot, which was a lot better, actually do really like that song. It is a little bit sort of similar in style to Ticket to Ride, and also there was the song Wait, which would show up on the following album, Rubber Soul. Also, around the time this album was being made, the Beatles received their MBEs from the Queen. This was a very significant event, because never had a young pop band ever received this honour. So definitely just showed the huge significance that the Beatles had in UK culture around this time. So naturally, this album was a huge commercial success, topping the charts in both the UK and America. Where it was released again a slightly different version. It was more a soundtrack to the film, only containing the 7 tracks on the first side, as well as some film music, some film soundtrack music on the second side. But this was the original album, the way the Beatles intended it to be as it came out in the UK. Also, quite notably as well, it was nominated for Album of the Year at the 1966 Grammy Awards, making it the first rock/pop album to be nominated in this category. So I want to now show you my vinyl copy of the album. There's nothing special about this one. This is just the remastered one from the stereo vinyl box set. I've always liked the cover of Help. I've always thought it's a very aesthetically pleasing cover. Apparently the original intention was for them to spell out the letters Help. However, I don't think that ended up looking quite right. So they settled for this random combination which is NUJV. So yeah, that's what we get on the cover. And there's the back of it there, just with sort of portraits of each of them, and then the song listing, who sings each track. And there's no fancy with this either, just on the usual Parlophone Records label here. So that's the vinyl record looked at. So I'll now go over each of the album songs in detail. There's 14 tracks in total, I believe here. So yes, I will score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Now I've changed my mind, I've opened up the door. So it kicks off with the classic title track, Help, which is a great song. Originally, this was composed as a more sort of slower, morning ballad. Lennon, was a little bit depressed, around this time. He said that, this song, was quite literally, a cry for help, a very sort of, desperate song, the fame and, pressures, of, being, in, the Beatles, was sort of, getting to him. And, I said, it was originally, this much, sort of, slower, piano and bass song, which I think the demos the demo of it is kicking about on YouTube somewhere, but kind of for commercial reasons, and that because this was going to be the lead song from the film, they decided to speed it up a bit, add these backing vocals on it, and it became another classic #1 hit for the Beatles. Maybe I have overheard the song a little bit, but it is still a classic song. It's really, really, really well written, well performed. Yeah, just a faultless track there, an easy 10 out of 10.
Treat me like you did the night before.
The next number up is called The Night Before, which keeps the energy level up like a solid McCartney rocker, this one here. Like, I like how they are also sort of subtly, like, expanding their sound as well, like, because, like, Lennon plays a electric piano, like, on this one, like, rather than rhythm guitar, like, which sort of, like, it gives it, like, a slightly different, like, sort of sonic edge, like, compared to, like, some, like, off, like, the Beatles, like, early work. Like, a very sort of, like, quickly recorded song, like, apparently, like, only took, like, 2 takes to do it, like, along with, like, McCartney and George Harrison, like, overdubbing, like, electric lead guitar, like, on it. So, yeah, like, it's a song which I have always really liked. So, yeah, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Hey, you've got to hide your love away.
Okay, now we get another one of the most popular songs on the album. It's You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, which is a kind of simple, like, acoustic track, like, written, like, by Lennon. Like, he's sort of going in, like, this more sort of, like, personal and, like, introspective direction, like, inspired, like, by Bob Dylan, like, who had, like, kind of just recently, like, sort of, like, entered, like, the Beatles' life, like, sort of thing. Like, he was, his sort of, like, folky music, like, was sort of, like, influencing, like, their sounds, like, around this time. And, like, definitely, like, this is, like, a track, like, where, like, you can hear, like, the Dylan influence coming through. However, lyrically, for me, I certainly sense it might be sort of, like, directed to their manager, Brian Epstein. Like, he was, like, of course, like, homosexual, like, so sort of, like, John Lennon, like, singing the line, like, hey, you've got to hide your love away. I mean, like, this was a time, like, when, like, being gay, like, was illegal, like, in, like, the 60s, like, so, like, it kind of, like, could be, like, sort of, like, about that, but, like, also, like, it could be, like, a more, like, however, it could also be, like, a more, like, autobiographical song, and, like, it's got a great, sort of, like, sequence, like, in, like, the film, like, as well, like, with them all sort of, like, sitting, like, in, like, the front room, like, sort of singing it. So, yeah, really works well. An easy 10 out of 10 for me. Another fantastic track.
I need you. Said you.
Okay, and then we get another favourite of mine, which is the George Harrison penned I Need You, which is only the second George Harrison song to feature, like, on, like, a like, Beatles album, like, as far, like, as, like, original like, composition. And I would say it is his first really great song. It's a sort of, like, a love song, like, to, like, his then girlfriend, Pattie Boyd. I just feel, like, a lot, like, emotion, like, in, like, the song, like, really, like, the chord structure, like, of it. Also, like, musically, it features a, like, sort of guitar volume pedal, like, which was quite a new gadget, like, at the time. Like, again, it just shows the Beatles constantly expanding their sound and trying to find, like, something, like, new to put on their records. So, yeah, I Need You, another really great song, and another 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, I've got another girl.
And then the next one up is written by Paul McCartney, like, mostly. It's Another Girl, which is a sort of like a more sort of like, again, like, sort of like upbeat, like, sort of like rocking track, quite sort of cocky lyrics on it about sort of like not taking what you don't want and, like, boasting about, like, for I have got another girl, like I had, like, classic, like, McCartney territory. Like, interestingly as well, it is Paul, like, rather than George, like, who actually plays, like, the lead guitar part, like, on this song. Like, I'm not sure, like, if this was the first example, like, of McCartney playing like electric lead, like, on, like, a Beatles song, but it was kind of the start, like, of, like, McCartney kind of taking away some of, like, the lead guitar duties, like, from, like, George Harrison, like, to the point, like, where on, like, later albums, like, Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, like, it was almost shared, like, 50-50, like, between the two of them. But yeah, another really, really solid track. Probably not my absolute favourite, like, on the album, but another great song there. I would give that one a 9 out of 10.
You're gonna lose that girl. You're gonna lose that girl. You're gonna lose.
And then we get what for me is possibly my favourite song on the whole album. It's You're Gonna Lose That Girl, which, yes, I just really like, sort of like the concept, like, of, like, the lyric on this is basically about a guy, like, sort of singing, like, to, like, one of his friends that if he doesn't start sort of caring and, like, looking after, like, his girlfriend, like, the singer, like, will sort of take her, like, away from him and, like, sort of, like, start, like, going out with her, like, sort of thing. So yeah, like, it just works really well. Like, I just love, like, again, the instrumentation on it, like, is quite interesting. Like, I believe Paul plays some, like, piano, like, on it, like, kind of, like, just beefs up the sound a bit, and, like, you've got Ringo, like, sort of, like, tapping away, like, on, like, some bongos. Yeah, it just works really well. Again, the vocal harmonies are just, like, on point. Just a wonderful song there. Another 10 out of 10 for me.
She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket.
And And then we get probably my second favourite song on the album, Ticket to Ride, which, yeah, is just an absolute classic track. This was one of the singles from the album and, like, reached #1, like, as like, you would expect. And John Lennon apparently called this the first heavy metal song. Now, although I would probably say that it's pushing it a little bit, it does definitely have a kind of drive, like, not present like in other Beatles tracks. Like, kind of thanks to, like, Ringo's, like, unique, like, drum pattern, like, off, like, the song, just really, like, propels, like, the track along. Plus, you've got like these sort of chiming like Rickenbacker 12 strings like all over it. It just sounds incredible. And this song, yeah, like a real favourite of mine. Yeah, closes off the first side very, very well.
And all I gotta do is act naturally.
So then we flip over to the second side, which for me isn't quite as strong as the first side, but there are still some real gems on it. Kicks off with the song Act Naturally, which is the first sort of cover song, notably, like on this album. Like, kind of like by this point, like the Beatles, like the Beatles were like winding down like their practice, like putting cover songs like on the album, and like they only put this song like on it because they didn't like the song like which like they wrote for Ringo, like if you've got troubles, like wasn't indeed like good enough, like as I said. So they do this song instead, and I think this is a much better fit like for Ringo. It's a fun song. It's a kind of like an old country song, like originally by like a guy called Buck Owens. It kind of suits Ringo well, like from like the humorous lyric like about a guy like trying to make it like in like the acting world. So yeah, like just like a really good song, and like Ringo still plays it live like to this day. So yeah, we'll get an 8 out of 10 for that one.
It's only love and that is all.
And then the next up is called It's Only Love, which is another kind of Lennon acoustic song, very much a kind of brother like of something like You're Gonna Hide Your Love Away, or like You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, sorry, like I mean like it's a sort of very similar style of song and also very sort of similar lyrically, and like Lennon himself has been very dismissive like of this song, but you know, I actually really like it. Like I like the melody like of the song. Also George Harrison contributes some really nice guitar playing, which was I read recorded through a Leslie organ speaker, like which must have been like one of the first like sort of like studio like experimentations like by like the band. Like they would of course like later use like that like Leslie speaker like on the vocals like of Tomorrow Never Knows, but this was kind of like the first sort of like use like of like kind of like recording something through it, like kind of gives it this sort of like very unique sound. But yeah, a really good song, like I think, an 8 out of 10 for that one.
'Cause you like me too much and I like you.
And then we get the second George Harrison song on the album, which is called You Like Me Too Much, which this is only a 7 out of 10 for me. Is not one of my favourites on the album, and definitely not as strong like as his other song I Need You. It's just a little bit basic lyrically, and like kind of like the melody like isn't really like all that great. It's quite interesting, like sort of like instrumentally, like you've got like kind of like pianos driving the song, like which is quite like sort of like odd like for George Harrison, like kind of like being like the guitarist like off like the band, like kind of like, you've got like sort of like John, it says like John playing like electric piano and Paul and George Martin playing a Steinway. So yeah, like it's kind of like there's not very much guitars like on this song, but yeah, like I mean like it's not a bad track, bro. Like certainly like a 7 out of 10 like is still a very like respectable score for it. Just for me, like by Beatles standards, it isn't one of their greatest moments.
Tell me what you see.
And then we get, for me, a really underrated tune, which is called Tell Me What You See, which is, yeah, just so underrated, this track here. I really like it. It's also, like, acoustic track, like, again, like, kind of, like, led like, by McCartney. I think it foreshadows a lot of, like, the stuff, like, on, like, Rubber Soul, like, with, like, kind of, like, not only, like, the acoustics, but also, like, the sort of, like, Latin, like, percussive, like, elements, like, on it as well. I like the sort of, like, rhythmic changes, like, off it, like, kind of, like, the chorus line, like, where it goes, Tell Me What You See, and then it kind of stops a bit, and like we get a wee like piano riff. It's just very nicely done. Like I've always like really enjoyed this track like for what it is. So yeah, we'll give it a 9 out of 10 for Tell Me What You See.
Falling, yes I am falling, and she keeps calling.
And then we get another sort of McCartney acoustic track called I've Just Seen a Face, which I again really love this song. It has a kind of Beatles sort of do country sort of like flavour to it, like very sort of like fastly strummed like acoustic guitars like on it. Like I mean, like I really like the lyrics on it. It's a very catchy song, like the Falling, I Guess I'm Falling sort of chorus part on it. And I also think it is one of McCartney's favourite songs like from this era, like because like it's one what he still performs live like to this day. Like it was one of the only only Beatles songs like which he done on the Wings Over America tour like in 1976. So yeah, just a really great song there. Another 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, yesterday came suddenly.
And then we stay with Paul McCartney for the penultimate song on the album, the absolutely classic Yesterday, which kind of for me seems a little bit lost like in like this place like on the album, because you think it is such a sort of like substantial song. Like it is one of like the Beatles' most famous songs, like probably McCartney's most famous song, like I would say. Like it's certainly like the most covered song like of all time. And like we all know the story like about like how like he wrote this song like initially, like he didn't believe like when he woke up like with this tune like in his head, he didn't believe that it was like his song, like he was convinced that he'd like misremembered it like from somewhere. But it is just an incredible song, like the way like sort of like the strings come in, and like kind of like I like how they've kept it simple like on this track like as well, like as far like as like not like cluttering it up like with like drums like or like other like guitar parts. I just really found like a sort of like an almost like a new way to work like on this song here, because this was the first Beatles song to only feature like one of the band members. Like of course like that would kind of become like common practice like as like the years like went on, like whether like this was a very sort of like significant point like in like the Beatles career, Yesterday. So yeah, an easy 10 out of 10 for me. For me personally, the song like doesn't grow old. But then unfortunately we end the album with a little bit of a dud track. It is Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which yeah, I'm not a massive fan of this song. Like I mean, like it is a cover song originally by Larry Williams. Like John Lennon kind of like sings this song, and it is kind of like them trying to repeat like the formula like of closing with like kind of like a sort of like up-tempo rocker like they've done with Twist and Shout and Money, and just trying to think like what was the other one, like Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, and that like the Beatles like in like the early days they didn't have great closing tracks like on the album, and this is definitely like not a great closing track like for me. Like yeah, like it's just a bit annoying like the actual song itself, like that lead guitar riff is kind of just repeated like throughout the track. Personally for me, I'm Down would have been a better closer, like a kind of like similar like rocking feeling, like whether it is a original song and like a lot better for me than Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which yeah does end the album on a little bit like of a sour note. But overall, this album still manages to score a very excellent 90%. So yeah, I think this is a great album. Of course it's great, like it is the Beatles, but I think like even like by Beatles standards, this certainly ranks like for me like in like the top half like of their discography. I just think that it is the Beatles sort of like in transition, you know, like they're sort of like, it was like the last album of theirs to feature like cover songs, like the original material like was becoming like a lot more interesting, like both musically and also lyrically, like kind of like the variety like of like instrumentation like sort of signposts albums like Rubber Soul and Revolver, but also like the lyrics as well, like probably more like John Lennon's like lyrics like than like McCartney like and Harrison. Like at this stage like his lyrics were becoming like sort of like a lot more sort of like profound, a lot more personal and autobiographical. And I've said this before, like and I'll say it again, but for me the Beatles were always ahead like of like their competition. Like if you compare this to the albums like of like the Rolling Stones and like the Kinks, although like of this time, although those are pretty good albums, you know, for me they don't come close to like the Beatles output like off like the early 60s. Like they were always sort of like ahead like off like the game, and this album is definitely testament to that. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed my review of the album Help, and yes, I hope you will join me for the next video. Goodbye.